The gym was buzzing with energy, the steady hum of treadmills and the rhythmic clinking of weights filling the air. People were focused on their routines, some lost in their music, others pushing themselves to their limits. Among them was James Carter, a retired Marine and a regular at the gym. James had lost his right leg in combat, a sacrifice that had left him with more than just physical scars. But he never let it stop him. With his prosthetic leg and unwavering determination, he showed up every morning, working harder than most. His presence was inspiring to many. Except for one man. Ryan Dawson, a muscular man in his late 30s, had been watching James for weeks. He often smirked when he saw him struggle with certain exercises, muttering under his breath. But today, he didn't hold back. "Why do you even bother, old man?" Ryan sneered as James adjusted the weights on the leg press machine. "You're taking up space for people who can actually make progress." A heavy silence fell over the gym. Heads turned, eyes widened. A few people exchanged nervous glances, unsure whether to step in. James, who had faced far worse in his life, remained calm. He locked eyes with Ryan, his expression unreadable. Then, with quiet strength, he said, "Progress isn't measured by what you have. It's measured by what you overcome." Ryan scoffed, crossing his arms. "Sounds like an excuse to me. You're weak. No wonder you lost a leg." A sharp gasp rippled through the crowd. The air grew thick with tension. For a moment, it seemed like James might retaliate, but instead, he simply exhaled, his grip tightening on the machine. Nobody expected what happened next. The gym remained eerily silent, the weight of Ryan's words hanging in the air like a storm about to break. Some people looked away, uncomfortable, while others watched with bated breath, waiting to see how James would react. James, however, didn't lash out. He didn't argue or throw insults back. Instead, he did something that caught everyone off guard. He smiled. It wasn't a forced or bitter smile. It was calm, almost knowing, like he had encountered men like Ryan before and knew exactly how to handle them. "You think losing a leg makes me weak?" James said, adjusting his prosthetic before settling back into position. "Let's put that theory to the test." Ryan raised an eyebrow, clearly not expecting a challenge. "You serious?" James nodded. "Leg press. You and me. Let's see. Who can push more?" A few murmurs spread through the gym. Some were impressed by James's confidence, while others worried it would escalate things further. Ryan, however, just laughed, shaking his head. "You can't be serious, old man. You've got one real leg. This isn't a fair fight." James tilted his head. "You just said I was weak. If that's true, you have nothing to worry about." Ryan's smirk faltered for just a second, but his pride wouldn't let him back down. "Fine. Let's do this." He cracked his knuckles and sat down first, loading the machine with a heavy set of weights. With a grunt, he began pressing, his muscles bulging with effort. He pushed through 10 reps, then 15, his face contorting with strain. By the time he reached 20, his legs were shaking, and he finally let out a breath, stepping aside. With an arrogant grin. "Beat that." James didn't hesitate. He calmly adjusted the weights, adding even more. Some gasped, others exchanged astonished glances. He positioned himself, took a deep breath, and started pressing. 1 rep, 2, 5, 10. Each movement was steady, controlled. His prosthetic leg moved in perfect sync with his real one, his body unshaken. 15, 17, 19. The crowd edged closer, eyes locked on James. Then, to everyone's shock, he pushed past 20, then 25, making it look effortless. Ryan's cocky grin disappeared. The gym erupted into murmurs of disbelief. And then, James wasn't done yet. Sweat trickled down Ryan's temple as he watched James push past his 20 reps with remarkable ease. The gym was no longer just watching, they were in awe. James didn't stop at 25. He went to 30, then 35. His face remained focused, his breathing controlled. Every repetition was a testament to his strength, not just physical, but mental. The kind of strength that came from surviving war, from pushing through pain, from refusing to let the world define his limits. At 40 reps, he finally let the weights come down slowly, then sat up, wiping his brow. The entire gym was silent for a moment. Then, one by one, people began to clap. Ryan's face turned red. His arrogance had vanished, replaced by something that looked dangerously close to embarrassment. He had walked into this thinking he would humiliate James. But now, he was the one exposed. James looked over at him, his expression unreadable. He wasn't gloating. He wasn't smug. He simply met Ryan's gaze and said, "Strength isn't about what you have, it's about what you refuse to let break you." Ryan clenched his jaw, unable to respond. He had no comeback, no insults left to throw. He had been beaten, not just in strength, but in character. As James stood up, adjusting his prosthetic, a young man from the crowd stepped forward. "That was incredible, sir," he said with admiration. "Thank you for your service." Another person spoke up, then another. Soon James was surrounded by people shaking his hand, thanking him, not just for his service, but for reminding them what true resilience looked like. Ryan, standing alone, glanced around, realizing the shift in the room. The respect he once commanded with his muscles and bravado had been overshadowed by something much greater. Then, without another word, he turned and walked out of the gym. But this wasn't the end. What happened next would change everything. The gym returned to its usual rhythm in the following days, though the atmosphere had subtly shifted. James's quiet victory over Ryan had left an impression on everyone. People who had once been indifferent to him now nodded in respect or stopped to chat, inspired by his resilience. Ryan, however, was nowhere to be seen. For 3 days, he didn't come to the gym. Some speculated that he was too embarrassed to show his face after what had happened. Others thought he might have transferred to another gym altogether. James, as always, kept to his routine, seemingly unfazed by Ryan's absence. But on the 4th day, Ryan returned. It was late in the afternoon when he walked in, his usual confidence subdued. He didn't head straight to the weights or puff out his chest like he usually did. Instead, he scanned the gym until his eyes landed on James, who was finishing his workout on the rowing machine. Ryan hesitated, his hands fidgeting at his sides. Finally, he took a deep breath and approached. "Hey," he said, his voice quieter than anyone had ever heard it. James looked up, his expression neutral. "Ryan?" There was a long pause. Ryan shifted uncomfortably, as though the words he wanted to say were stuck in his throat. Finally, he exhaled and spoke. "Look, I was out of line," he said, his voice heavy with regret. "What I said to you the other day, it was wrong and disrespectful." James didn't respond right away. He studied Ryan as though gauging the sincerity of his words. "I've been thinking about it," Ryan continued, his gaze dropping to the floor. "I acted like a jerk. No, worse than that, I was a bully, and I don't have an excuse for it. You didn't deserve that." The gym grew quieter as people noticed the interaction. Conversations hushed, and eyes turned toward the two men. "I've been through some stuff," Ryan admitted, his voice barely above a whisper now. "But that doesn't give me the right to take it out on anyone, especially someone like you. I'm sorry, man." "Really?" James stood, his prosthetic clicking softly against the floor. He didn't say anything for a moment, letting the weight of Ryan's apology settle. Then he extended a hand. "Apology accepted," James said simply. Ryan looked up, surprised. He reached out and shook James's hand firmly. There was no malice, no lingering tension, just a quiet understanding. "Thank you," Ryan said, his voice thick. As he walked away, some of the gym members clapped softly, acknowledging the moment. Ryan didn't stop to bask in it. He simply went to the weights and began his workout, humbled but seemingly lighter. But for James, it wasn't about winning or losing. It was about something bigger, showing that true strength lies in forgiveness. What neither man realized, though, was that this wasn't the last time their paths would cross. After Ryan's apology, the tension between him and James seemed to dissolve. The gym, once a place of quiet competition between them, became neutral ground. They didn't become friends overnight, but the hostility was gone. Ryan was different now. He trained without arrogance, no longer glancing around to see who was watching. He didn't mock or belittle anyone. He carried himself with more humility, but there was still something in his eyes, something James recognized. One evening, as the gym emptied out, Ryan lingered near the water fountain, staring at the floor with a distant expression. James, finishing up his routine, noticed. "Something on your mind?" he asked. Ryan let out a small chuckle, shaking his head. "You're sharp, huh?" James didn't respond. He just waited. After a long silence, Ryan sighed. You ever feel like no matter how strong you get, you're still fighting something you can't beat? James studied him carefully. Yeah, he finally said. I do. Ryan hesitated before speaking again. I wasn't always like this. The guy you saw, the jerk, the loudmouth, I wasn't always that guy. He ran a hand over his face, as if trying to wipe away the past. I used to be in the army, served 2 tours. James's posture straightened slightly. He had suspected it, but hearing it confirmed something for him. Then I got injured, Ryan continued, his voice tightening. Not like you, nothing visible. But my head, he tapped his temple. That's where I took the real hit. Came home a different person, angry, restless, felt like the world moved on without me. James remained quiet, letting Ryan speak at his own pace. I lost my job, pushed people away. The gym became the only place where I still felt in control. Ryan let out a bitter laugh. That's probably why I lashed out at you. Seeing you push through it, seeing people respect you, it reminded me of everything I couldn't fix in myself. James took a deep breath. He understood. More than Ryan knew. You're not broken, James said firmly. You're just carrying weight that no one else can see. Ryan's jaw tightened. And what if I can't carry it anymore? James placed a hand on Ryan's shoulder. Then you don't do it alone. For the first time, Ryan's hardened expression softened. The fight inside him, the one no one could see, wasn't over. But for the first time in a long time, he wasn't fighting it by himself. And neither was James. After that night, something shifted between James and Ryan. It wasn't an instant friendship, but an unspoken understanding had formed. They had both fought battles most people couldn't see, and for the first time in a long time, Ryan didn't feel alone in his struggle. James noticed the change in Ryan's workouts, too. He wasn't just training his body. He was trying to rebuild something inside himself. The anger that once fueled his every movement was fading, replaced by something else. Determination, discipline, healing. One afternoon, as they finished their sets, Ryan wiped the sweat from his forehead and looked over at James. You ever talk to anyone about it? James knew exactly what Ryan meant. Yeah, James admitted. Took me a while, though. Didn't think I needed help. Thought I could. Handle it all on my own. Ryan nodded slowly. Yeah, same. James observed Ryan closely, sensing the weight of the moment. There was something different in Ryan's eyes now. Something that wasn't there before. It wasn't just vulnerability. It was a quiet acceptance, the kind that came when someone realized they didn't have to carry the burden alone anymore. James could see it, even if Ryan wasn't ready to admit it just yet. You don't have to carry it alone, Ryan, James said, his voice calm but firm. There are people who understand, people who've been where you are. You don't have to fight this fight by yourself. Ryan's fingers tightened around the towel, his knuckles white. He wanted to respond, to dismiss it, but something inside him held him back. He wasn't used to this kind of honesty, this kind of openness. For so long, he'd kept everything bottled up, pushing people away, thinking he could fix it all on his own. It wasn't easy to admit he needed help, but hearing James's words, there was a warmth that spread through him. For the first time, it didn't feel like weakness. It felt like freedom. His breath came out in a long, slow exhale as he lowered his head. He had never been the type to talk about his struggles. Talking felt like admitting defeat. But standing, here, in this space where no one was judging him, he felt like he could breathe for the first time in a long time. Maybe, just maybe, there was hope for him after all. After a long pause, Ryan lifted his head looking at James. Maybe it's time I talked to someone, he said quietly, as if saying the words out loud somehow made it more real. The weight that had been pressing on his chest didn't feel quite as heavy now. James gave him a small but firm nod, his gaze steady. It's never too late to start healing, he said, the words simple but powerful. You've been through a lot, but you don't have to carry that pain alone anymore. You've got more strength than you think. Ryan didn't speak immediately. Instead, he just let the words sink in, feeling the quiet, reassuring truth of them. For the first time, he didn't feel like he was standing at the edge, ready to fall. Maybe, just maybe, he could take that first step forward. Ryan stood still, his eyes staring at nothing in particular, yet his thoughts were far from empty. There was something new in the way he looked now, something he hadn't felt in years. It wasn't a fleeting hope. It was something deeper, more solid, a flicker of light breaking through the darkness he'd been carrying inside. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, Ryan believed that maybe, just maybe, he wasn't completely lost. The weight he had been carrying seemed just a little bit lighter. It wasn't that all the pain or anger had vanished. That would take time. But there was a quiet certainty now, a realization that he wasn't defined by his past mistakes or the scars he wore, inside and out. He was standing on something more stable than ever before, the possibility of change. James, watching Ryan, felt a sense of peace settle in his chest. He'd seen this moment coming. It wasn't about fixing things right away or even winning every battle. It was about having the courage to fight the ones that mattered the most, the ones inside us. James knew from his own journey that the path to healing wasn't a straight line. It twisted and turned, but it always moved forward. Neither man knew where the road would take them. They didn't have all the answers, and maybe they never would. But one thing was clear. This was a new beginning, a shared understanding that strength wasn't just measured by muscles or victories. True strength was the courage to confront your deepest fears and to face the battles no one else could see. It was about choosing to keep going, even when the fight felt impossible. As they walked side by side out of the gym, their footsteps steady and sure. It wasn't just a physical journey. It was the start of a new battle, one they would face together, not as rivals, but as brothers. They were no longer enemies, no longer defined by the past. The gym, the weights, the noise, they had all faded away. What remained was something much more powerful. Two men ready to fight for themselves, for their healing, and for their future. And as they stepped out into the world, the weight of their shared understanding felt like the beginning of something incredible, something that didn't need to be fought alone. What a powerful story of strength, resilience, and redemption. In the end, it wasn't just about lifting weights or winning competitions. It was about finding the strength to face the most important battle of all, the one within. This story reminds us that true strength isn't just about physical power. It's about overcoming life's toughest battles, both seen and unseen. James and Ryan's journey shows us the importance of perseverance, humility, and finding the courage to heal. Sometimes, a second chance can change everything. If this story inspired you, don't forget to like, comment, and share to spread this powerful message. Let us know in the comments, what was the most emotional part for you? And if you love stories that touch the heart and keep you on the edge of your seat, make sure to subscribe for more.